This is lesson 8-4. We're solving equations using the distributive property. This is the last lesson in topic 8 that we're going to be going over before we take a test. We'll start off with the launch problem. Try your hardest. It's okay if you don't know how to do the launch problem. Its purpose is to get your minds thinking in the right direction.
The shaky bagel baker boldly decides to charge 5 cents more per bagel than his rival does for whole wheat bagels. Write an expression to show how he could figure out a per dozen price. Explain your reasoning.
Here's a possible expression that you could use and the reasoning behind it. You can pause the video and read through this for a better understanding. Moving to part 1, we'll start with the intro.
You can use the distributive property to simplify the expressions A times the quantity B plus C and A times the quantity B minus C, where A, B, and C are rational numbers. A times the quantity B plus C equals A times B plus A times C. And A times the quantity B minus C equals A times B minus A times C. Some equations are easier to solve if you apply the distributive property first to simplify them.
So we're going to apply that property to this example problem. We have negative 8 times the quantity x plus 3/10 equals 3 6/10. What I'm first going to do is distribute negative 8 to x equals negative 8x. We're using addition, so I know that this is a positive number. Negative 8 times 3/10. Eight times 3 is 24. And we move that decimal point over 1. A negative times a positive is a negative. So I know that I'm adding negative 2.4 or I'm subtracting 2.4. So I can either write negative 8x minus 2.4 or I could write negative 8x plus negative 2.4. The reason why I wrote it the first way is because it gets rid of a few symbols and signs. I think that this one is just easier to look at than this one. I have it equal to 3.6 or 3 6/10. And my goal is now to get x all by itself. So I know if I have negative 8x minus 2.4 or 2 4/10, I want to add 2 4/10. So if I add 2 4/10 to one side, I'm going to have to add 2 4/10 to the other side as well. They cancel each other out on this side. And on this side, it equals 6.0 because I added 2 4/10 to 3 6/10. I'm not quite finished yet. I am now looking at negative 8x. Still want to get x all by itself. When you see a number next to a variable, you're assuming that it's multiplication. So if I multiply x by negative 8, I know that the opposite of doing that is dividing by negative 8. So negative 8x divided by negative 8 is going to just leave me with x. And I'm left with 6 divided by negative 8. When I do that, I get negative 0 75/100. You can just use a calculator for this part if you would like to. My last step, which is a super important step, is to check your answer. So I simply need to put 0 or negative 0.75 or negative 75/100 in for x and solve. So I have negative 8 times negative 75/100 plus 0.3 equals 3.6. Orders of operations tells me to do what's in the parentheses first. So I want to add these two together, and I'm going to get negative 45 hundredths. Keep that in parentheses up against this negative 8. It equals 3.6. My second step is to multiply negative 45 hundredths times my negative 8. Negative times a negative is a positive, and that will give me 3.6. Again, you can use a calculator. I'm okay with that. So now we have to say, is this a true sentence or not? 3.6 equals 3.6. Hopefully you know that's true. So it checks out. We got the correct answer. X equals negative 75 hundredths. Now it's your turn in the got it problem. Take your time. Do it step by step. It may be a lot of steps, but I know that you can do it. So try this and I'll show you how to get the correct answer in a moment. The correct answer is A, B equals 1/6. And here's how we did it. You start off with the original problem, apply that distributive property, simplify. Then we got to get 6b by itself. So if we were subtracting 3, the opposite of that, or the inverse, is to add 3. Then we want b by itself still, so rather than multiplying by 6, we have to do the inverse and divide by 6. So when you divide each side, you'll get b equals 1/6. You then check your answer. Like I said, that's a very important part. When you check your answer, you can pause this video if I'm going too fast, but it does check out to -2 equals negative true, which is a true statement. We are now moving into part 2.
Analyzing an equation before you try to solve it is a good strategy. You can determine what operations you should use.
What this means is just really looking at the equation that you're trying to solve. Figure out what operations it's wanting you to do and think what inverse would follow that operation. So what is the opposite of all of the steps that equation needs? So when we look at 72 equals m plus 12, I know to get m by itself, I'm only going to use one operation. That operation is going to be the opposite of adding 12, which is subtracting 12. Over here, when I look at this, I see multiple things going on. I see a setup to use the distributive property, so I would have to distribute 7 to 2x and distribute 7 to 4. I would then have to add, which is the inverse of subtraction, this value. And I know that I will also have to divide, since there is 7 times 2 is 14, so you'll end up with 14x. So 14 times x, I'm going to have to divide by x. So this is a multiple step problem that involves more than 2 operations. When I look at this one, I can see that I would be adding a half, which would give me 3a, and then I would also need to divide, which is exactly 2 operations. What do you think this equation would fall under? If you said it needs more than 2 operations, you would be correct. What about this one? This one just does 1. The opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2, and you would get your final answer. And last but not least, what do you think this equation goes to? This one needs 2. You would subtract 13.9, and then you would have to divide by 6.
Which equations require 2 or more operations to solve?
Two and 3 would require 2 or more operations to solve. Number 1 only requires one operation to be able to solve it, which would be dividing by 4/5.
A family of 6 buys airline tickets online. Travel insurance costs $19 per ticket. The family is charged a total of $1,116. How much does one airline ticket cost if each airline ticket is the same price?
So what I know is that they have 6 tickets. I also know that insurance costs $19 per ticket. And I also know that they have a total cost of $1,116. I need to know how much does one airline ticket cost. So my plan is going to be determining how to get this equation set up. We would need to define a variable, we would need to write out our equation, and then we would need to solve our equation. I'm not going to take the time to write all of that out in this plain box just because it's very hard for me to write with a mouse. So my first step is going to be define my variable. I'm going to say that C is going to equal the cost, because that's what we're trying to figure out, the cost of a ticket. I also need to know how much is it going to cost altogether for a ticket. So not only the price of the ticket, but the price of the ticket plus your $19 for insurance. So I'm going to start writing my equation. I know that my final number needs to be 1,116. So 1,116 equals, I'm going to say that my price is going to be C, so that cost per ticket, plus that $19, that's insurance, and they paid insurance for every ticket that they bought. My last step is I'm going to multiply it by 6 because there's 6 people in the family. So they bought 6 tickets. So what I need to do to solve this problem is take 6 times how much is in here. I can't do that yet though, just because I don't know what C equals. So I have to go into solving for my equation. What I would do is, since multiply by 6 is kind of off to the side, I would divide by 6 on each side. So divide by 6, divide by 6. I pulled up the calculator so I could show 1,116 divided by 6. That equals 186. I'm going to move this up here. So 186 equals C plus 19, because that times 6 got canceled out. This got canceled out when I divided. And last but not least, I need to subtract 19 from both sides. So 196 minus 19 is going to give me 167. So that is what C equals. The plane tickets cost $167. We can then check our solution. So I'm going to make this go away. Remember, $167. We want to add $19 to our ticket price. So add $19 to our ticket price. We then want to multiply by our 6 people that bought a ticket. And this is the final answer we come up with, which matches this total number over here. So again, the price for one airline ticket was $167. Here's the last got it problem.
You mailed 20 identical invitations weighing more than 1 ounce each. Mailing each invitation cost 44 cents for the first ounce, plus 17 cents for each additional ounce. The postage for all of the invitations cost $15.60. Write and solve an equation to find the weight of each invitation.
The correct answer is C. Here's why.